data in this kind of industry and context comes as something new, or AI. It's a new investment. It's a new topic we need to imagine. Always the questions will be the same. What do we want with this? How will it serve us? How much does it cost? What's the return on investment? You need to know how to analyze, how to synthesize, and then how to recommend.
All right, welcome to the pod, Nina. Super excited to have you on board. I think you're one of the more unique stories that I'm going to be sharing today with the audience. Given your very varied sort of experience, you're not a, let's say, pure retail background person, but you've been through a few different journeys. Obviously, we'll spend some time learning about what you learned in retail in that journey. But I think before we get into that, I'd love for you to share a few words with the audience about who's Nina, what's been your journey so far, and we'll then jump into it from there.
Okay. First of all, thank you for having me, Mitul. I'm Nina Mimica from Zagreb, Croatia. Quite international person. So far lived at 9 different spots in the world. My professional experience, it's coming up to 20 years. It's across 4 different industries. So retail, telecommunications, global appliances, and advertising. My domain, it started in advertising and communication, but it developed towards product development and product management, innovation, international strategy, and then jumping into private equity context in the connection of my last retailer and experience. Somehow the highlight for me was always creating something new, whether that's from advertising. It's a commercial. It's a 360 campaign for different clients, or it's in product development. It's a new tariff for customers, or in retail, it's a new service in the store. So that's in short.
Just for the audience, can you share a little bit about what this retailer was, what they did, just so there's context around that?
Yes, I worked for 6 years in Studenac. This is the fastest growing retailer in Croatian market. So it used to be a family owned company of a one family initiating one store in Dalmatia. And then on the level of 350 stores, it got sold in 2018 to private equity. And this is the moment of a big change and simply of a need for a new management and for new activities, new processes. I was there for 6 years, first in the role of Director of Marketing and Corporate Communications, and then in the role of Main Director for Innovation and Digitalization, as well as holding the position of a board member in the company. While I was there, company was aggressively growing. When I left August 2025, it reached more than 1,500 stores. You can imagine what kind of intensive growth this is, jumping from 350 to 1,500. Also, employees jumping from 1,500 to 6,000. And all of this requires massive transformation, in a way, a lot of creativity coupled with a lot of structure. Very, very interesting.
So that's a good jump off point for the first thing I really wanted to understand, right? So you said one of the common things has been creation through all of these different stations. Is there a common motivator or a problem that you've seen again and again through these industries that you've been trying to solve that sort of, you would say is the line that connects everything together?
I have been working in customer facing roles. So always, whether that's from advertising point of view or product development or innovation and digitalization, it was always an end product or an end service for a customer. So I would say the highlight is the customer, of course, and creating something that will be easy for them, that they will want to buy, that they will want to use. And it's interesting to follow that journey across the industries. For instance, when I stepped into the role of innovation and digitalization in retail, I connected it to the strategic role in Deutsche Telekom, where I also worked on innovation, because simply I could see the connection across the industries. Customer in some, nevertheless, the industries, somehow they're the same. They're looking for seamless service. They're looking for where you can make their job easier. They are both digital and analog. They jump through the channels. So yes, coming back to the question that you said, customer is always here. And it was interesting to create new solutions across these different industries, but also to see similarities and to gain learnings and to gain inspiration. This is also what I found it interesting, to look for some solutions in retail which worked in telco, for instance.
Got it. So if, you know, one thing I found particularly interesting, I myself spent some time in telco, and the way telco thinks about the customer is quite different from the way retail thinks about the customer, right? Telco is super data driven. For every customer, you have an idea of like, what's their value, you know, what's the next best action to retain them, what's the churn likelihood, etc. And then you go into retail, where I think for the vast majority of physical retailers, they don't even know who their customer is, right? So a lot of the time, the customer is anonymous. So it's a very different sort of problem to be solving as someone who is used to thinking of the customer. Can you share a bit of light on one, what made you make that very drastic change from a very numbers driven, very sort of efficient industry like telco to a much more, let's say, emotion driven and people driven world that retail is? And especially when it comes to understanding the customer, what did you have to think about differently when you made that change?
Each job change was triggered by motivation for new knowledge and new responsibility. So this was exactly the same in this change in between telco and retail. To be quite frank, I was not searching for retail precisely. At that moment in time, I did not know it would be retail. Somehow it happened for me, I would say. I was 6 years in the telco world, both for the national company for Croatia, 3 years, and then 3 years for the international role on the level of Deutsche Telekom. And I was open to many things, to many different industries. And simply at this moment in time, this seemed like a nice change, nice opportunity. Maybe I wished for something different, something faster. Telco is great. I mean, I love it. I had great experiences, knowledge, processes, projects, international ones, and everything that I brought with me into next industry. But it's, somewhat slower, let's say, and it's stable. And I maybe wanted something quicker. And really, I did get it super fast. So retailer and under private equity support. And yes, as you said, so simply in comparison of the system itself and of the data setup, it's completely different. It's nice when you are also starting from scratch, when you have an option to set up things, to set up data warehouse system, to organize the data, to be able to clean the data. It's also exciting to be in this kind of building process of the company. So not all companies in Croatian market are in this stage, I would say also. And yes, you need to know what is fit for that kind of industry and moment, for sure. And you need to sometimes be patient. Some things are prerequisites to be done in order for services or offers to be launched. But it was an interesting journey, definitely.
And what would you say, like, you know, coming from, as you said, you know, kind of unintentionally stumbling into retail, what would you say are the things that surprised you the most in that space?
It's a different pace of the industry, definitely. I mean, that's the most obvious one. Customer life cycle, longer and shorter. Of course, offers or the type of the offers that apply in one industry do not apply here. We were quite hands-on. I would say that's a highlight for every retailer. Somehow, even if you are in a executive level and C level, you need to be quite dynamic, fast, agile. Listen to the market, observe daily, be able to switch the offers. It's exciting. It's dynamic. It's completely different from telco, where you plan the tariff. You change the tariff portfolio on the level of 2 years, and you plan it, and you think of technical enablers, and you launch some super nice things. But then it's valid for 2 years until customers sign the contract, and you plan new phones and things like this. Here, it's, I would say, daily, weekly. It's also very driven by market trends, by specific activities in the market, by customer needs, by specific holidays. This life cycle and the dynamics that is connected to it, I would say it really lays the ground for everything else, for how the managers need to be and what kind of employees are fit, I would say, in this kind of environment. So what may be, we say agile, but I would say retail is really agile naturally.
Naturally,
Naturally, somehow the directors and executives, they don't maybe even are aware of it. Somebody who is in the retail all his lifestyle, maybe I would say they are not even aware how agile they are, in being able to swiftly change decisions and to move the direction and things like this.
And if you think of your time in retail, right? What I'm curious to understand is, was there some example of something you could bring in from the non-retail world, from the telco world, that actually worked quite well in the retail environment, right? Like you said, a lot of the times the people who've been in the space, and the
Mhm.
vast majority of people we meet in retail have been in retail most of their lives. Some people will come up from the shop floor and, make their way into senior management and so on and so forth. So, do you have an example or a memory of something where you said, we do this differently, or we've done this differently in telco, let's try this here, and had it actually work well?
Yes, I would give maybe two examples. So first is, I would say, partnership collaborations make sense. We had that in telco. For instance, you have inside of the tariff, you have Spotify or Deezer or some kind of insurance package and things like this. And these are the methods that you attract, you want to diversify. Okay, tariff is a baseline. And in the end, all of the telco players have tariffs, but these are the layers where you try to be different. And I would say this kind of logic and thinking applies to retail as well, and could apply to third or fourth industry. And we did it in the retailer I was in. We introduced specific offers for the point of sale of the partner's offer. So the retail, of course, is a baseline. I mean, you are selling fruit and veg and non-food and things like this. But in the end, you try to create some kind of additional one-stop shop. For instance, a place where you can pick up or send your package, your parcel, where you can play a specific lottery game,
Mhm.
where you can do something which is not typically connected to a retailer. And then another thing I would say is making connection with the ecosystem. So on a comparison of a telco, this is core telco and over-the-top players like WhatsApp and Viber.
Mhm.
In retail, maybe this is a comparison with the aggregators such as Volt and Glovo, DoorDash, and things like this. So comparing here across the industries, okay, you can see them as competitors, right? I mean, they enter the space of retail. They even have back dark stores. They take a share of overall retail
Wallet.
space. You can see them this way. You can maybe see them as partners. So, for instance, I mean, it depends on the context, of course, of your retailer. In that moment in time, the retailer I was in was not present online. And simply, okay, which are the possible ways? Possible way is to develop something of your own, or to partner with somebody who already developed this kind of solution and solved, in a way, this last mile, which is the most costly. And this is the way we decided to proceed, not seeing them as competitors, but seeing them as a partner in this ecosystem where both of the parties can have a share. And still, this has been valid for past 4 or 5 years. A retailer's online presence is on both of the aggregators in the market, Volt and Glovo.
Excellent. I want to come back to the second example you gave, right? Because I was just reading about this thing that was announced last week, where IKEA and Decathlon are doing a joint store together, right? And it
Mhm.
just makes me think of the example you gave of, like, partnering with the ecosystem. You don't see this so often with retailers, right? Where they'll sort of
Yes.
say, how can we combine our concepts that aren't competing with each other into one format? And I think that's super interesting because you've taken something like sports where frequency is obviously a lot higher and combined that with
Mhm.
home, which is probably, half the frequency of a sports retailer, and created an environment where as a customer, you can sort of, you may go in for sport, but you're there and you might see something else and say,
Mhm.
here's an interesting opportunity. So I'm quite excited to see that kind of stuff happening. And I think the idea you mentioned of, also working with channels like the Wolts and the Uber Eats and so on and so forth, becomes a really interesting angle for retailers. Now, if you
Mhm.
rotate that a bit on the other way around, right? You've now moved on from retail in the meantime. And you've said before, like when you were talking about retail, that retailers have a large amount of data, a lot of untapped potential that they're seeing in that. If you had to sort of give people who are still in the industry some recommendation around that, like what are the opportunities you see? What things did you kind of try to tap into when you were there? I'd love to hear a bit of your thoughts around the retail and data piece.
It is definitely a vast potential. If we speak of the data field in general, I would recommend that whoever is listening really, if they have an opportunity, that they do investigate it. Definitely, I mean, there is a potential in the use cases that you can deploy. One direction of the use cases where you can utilize your data is definitely connected to your loyalty and even beyond loyalty. So simply whatever you can imagine in regards to shaping the offers, let's say connected to the catalog, promotional offers, tweaking them to be better both for you, but also for the customer. When I say you, I mean fitability, and in sense that you are offering what makes sense business wise, but also keeping the customer in the loop. Loyalty can get really a different dimension. We see different kind of loyalties, different kind of applications. There are, white label solutions where you get back end and front end, and they're quite simple, and that's fine. But the next level is using the data and really playing with it in the sense of creating smaller customer groups, creating groups which make sense for you. There is no unique formula that you should follow, but simply seeing and learning and observing what this data is giving you, how customers are reacting to the offer. Sometimes it's also nice to test the offer, and then you did it make sense or not. So I would say one stream in regards to data is the customer oriented one, and then the second stream is, I would call it maybe operational one, connected in regards to your operational excellence, meaning the business and the way you as a retailer function. So let's say utilizing data for creation of the pricing policies and pricing approach, utilizing it for promotions, or more from the perspective of margins, like how you will tweak and organize your portfolio across both the catalog and loyalty and in-store offers and things like this, that it's meaningful. Then using it from utilizing data from the context of marketing.
Mhm,
So making sure, really looking through the profitability of each and every marketing channel,
mhm.
and really knowing where to direct the investment.
Cases you're mentioning, right? There's obviously great case studies of like companies doing that as well. If I think of the more simple case of the loyalty example, those are strong use cases that are, it's pretty evident why you would do it. Why do you think the industry still struggles to close that gap though? Like, why do you think it's still, in theory, this sounds amazing. In practice, when we as customers or people in the industry look at it, the vast majority don't seem to be getting this right.
Why we see the blockage of this deployment of data, and we can even connect it to digitalization overall, maybe to AI. I would say the same answer applies. I would say the hurdle, let's say the initial investment and setup in order to initiate it, it's quite high. So in a way, there are a couple of prerequisites that each organization needs to go through in order to launch this properly. So first, there needs to be like a C-level buy-in in order for you to enter into the data world or digitalization or AI world, there needs to be the same understanding, alignment of all of the stakeholders which are important in your context: board members, owners, different stakeholders. So first of all, everybody needs to say, okay, let's do it. Then that's not enough that everybody says, let's do it. You need to know where you are going. And if you have many, and usually for data, you have many different stakeholders. I mean, data is important for the commercial part. It's important for the operational part, for the marketing part, for logistic part. I didn't even mention earlier the use cases for logistics. So it's across the organization connected topic. And there needs to be a clarity as in what you are doing and what you are not doing. Because definitely this team cannot do everything, and you cannot scatter around and just say, okay, we'll do this, then we do that. I mean, just like with commercial part of business or marketing part of business, you need to have a clear strategy. What is the main focus that we will use data on? Sometimes in my example, it was more internal things, and that's also fine. I see a lot of retailers or other company that use it for a customer-oriented part. Maybe they did the background work already, and maybe they completed this, and now they can speak about these examples for the customers. Simply, you need to prioritize, I would say. You need to deal with many different interests, so as these stakeholders are involved. And then thirdly, I would say, because this is a segment still this is a segment of the business which is not core in a way. What is core? Retail is here for selling veggies and fruits and meat and non-food and things like this. And then data in this kind of industry and context comes as something new, or AI. It's a new investment. It's a new topic we need to imagine. And sometimes when you prioritize among your organization, it will be lacking behind. There needs to be a lot of investment from everybody who is important in the organization simply to make that this topic is going forward. So just summarizing it back, there needs to be a buy-in of all stakeholders involved. There needs to be a clear strategy as to what you are doing, what you are not doing at that moment, what's your focus. And thirdly, there needs to be a consistent and persistent drive that in the end you deploy this, that it's not only talking, that in the end you develop things, develop tools which are utilized across the organization. Sometimes the hurdle, you asked about the hurdle, sometimes the budget is hurdle, because these topics they're not cheap.
Yeah,
I mean, entering into the data projects, it's not that one person can do this.
of course.
You need to have a data engineer. You need to have a data scientist. It's not enough to have two people. I mean, you need to have probably somebody who is working around data warehouse, so business intelligence. Then you need to have, maybe given your context, product owner who is organizing the whole context and collecting the input, speaking to the organization. So sometimes it's a story about budget. Maybe it's a story about or a hurdle about the talent.
Mm.
In some markets, it's hard also to find enough people to work on this. But it's possible. It's possible. Also, what I would say, you asked why it's not happening so fast or so often. I can compare it to marketing. In marketing, you see change faster, I would say. Connecting marketing to commercial. You agree on a specific offer to the customer. I mean, within 1-2 weeks, you can see the reactions, you can see the results, you can see the impact, you can change, you can tweak. I mean, within 1 month of the calendar year, you can do a ton. Especially if you have a loyalty, you can see the reactions daily. And here in this kind of data-driven world and projects and digital, I mean, AI connected, they're more complex projects that require development. Sometimes you develop this in-house. Sometimes you buy specific things from vendors, but still implementation takes, I would say I never had implementation less than 6 months. And you have the preparation time, you have the selection, or you do something in-house. Still, you need to prepare the specification, you need to align on the aim, you need to sign contracts, and then you develop, and then you see the results so much later on. I would maybe already give an answer how to overcome this hurdle is to show the results in an agile way. So just like retailers are agile around usually their topics about the commercial, about the offers, about the catalogs, about this, try to find an angle how you can show already the impact and the benefit of the tool that you're creating sooner, not waiting for the perfect solution, perfect digital tool. Try to show the benefits, let the end user feel it, and things like this.
That makes a lot of sense. When you were describing this, I had to think a lot about how different the mindset around this is. As you said, like it's not the core to the business and retail. But yet, if you look at the retailers, and I'm using the word more broadly now, that have really succeeded in the last, let's say, 5 years. You think of the Shein, the Temu, the Amazon, the bigger platforms. For them, the data core was the reason, or was a very large
Yes.
part, at least, of the reason they
Yes.
succeeded. And now
Yes.
we're coming, and you touched upon this, we're coming into the AI world now, where it becomes even more critical because AI is working off of the data you have. And I don't think a week goes by where a retailer doesn't tell me something like, yeah, we have different data online than we have for our in-store products. Like, I don't have product details about my in-store products and so on and so forth. But you're moving into a world where customers are increasingly going to be interact with you via digital channels. They're already doing that. But now even more so because they're not even going to try to come to your website sometimes. They may just ask a GPT and say, hey, where can I find the best meat in my area? And it then comes down to how good the quality of that data is that you're making available. So I would like to hope that this starts to become more of a core topic than just being let's say, secondary topic as you were describing it so far. And I like the idea a lot to say, well, how do you make that happen? You make that happen by showing the impact of it sooner. And I think that's where most of these initiatives struggle is everyone's trying to do things perfectly and like do this, really long transformation over 12, 18 months. And somewhere along the way, momentum gets a bit lost and the goal gets a bit forgotten. And, until you've seen the results, 10 other things have happened in the world where like, oh, wait, this new food product is really going viral right now. Let's go put focus on procurement. Let's go put focus on assortment and so on and so forth. And, data will figure out stuff later on. What I'm then wondering is, and you've now sort of chosen to move on from retail since August. You're now in an advisory kind of position where helping companies figure out how to do transformation, how to sort of go into this new age. What would you say is the approach you would recommend or you're taking even when you're talking to these companies that are looking to
Mhm.
change but are struggling from that, let's say, legacy mindset in a world that's changing even faster every day?
In a way, I do see similarities in my past C-level and executive roles and in this advisory. And I would say that is connected to the approach simply. So in a way, I also needed to advise specific stakeholders around me. I had a responsibility for a given topic. And then, of course, I had my boss, I had my colleagues who also had a specific interest and we were connected business-wise. So in a way, my approach and how I work, I would say generally, I like to do this advisory approach to the work itself, meaning that there is a time for analysis, there is time for synthesis of what you analyzed, and then you present and you advise. So this did not change in my approach connecting now to the advisory, but of course the context changed and my stakeholders changed, and I'm in contact with different industries now. My knowledge, my 20-year knowledge across the organization simply enabled me that today I speak with companies also coming from different industries. But I would say the key definitely is simply each story is its own and it requires the analysis. This involves deep dive interviews, this involves discussions, This involves the research, different methods. This involves different data that you obtain from in-house and researching the market and things like this. Now, when I think of it, all of this I did also in the company, just the surrounding is different. And then with all of this data, you, in the end, need to make some kind of conclusions. So in the given context, I mean, my aim is always to leave the topic better than I found it, to leave it more organized, to leave it improved, to leave it with a new offer, which can bring new revenues, to, refurbish the communication. Of course, what's the aim of communication? It's to sell, it's to promote, it's to find new customers. So in the end, I mean, the aims do not change. The principles of the work are the same, I would say, across the industries, across the roles that you have. And coming back also you asked about, I mean, how is it then with transformation? I mean, it's always tough, I would say, with transformation, with change. I mean, we know that people do not like change. I mean, this is not anything bad. Simply, we need to be ready for this. We need to, this is a nature. We like our comfort. We like to also connect to maybe some things which we did past year, then connect it, improve it, and things like this. I would say it's also not key of transformation to, change everything and to kill everything around and things like this. A key is to also understand what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, where to invest, how to deal with this. You need to be, on one hand, analytical. On the other hand, you need to be creative, I would say, for these kind of roles. You need to be able to convince your stakeholders to join in a specific project, to enter the data investment, let's say, to enter into chatbot development and things like this. Always the questions will be the same, I would say, in this kind of scenario. What do we want with this? How will it serve us? How much does it cost? What's the return on investment? And things like this. You need to know how to analyze, how to synthesize, and then how to recommend.
I have one last question to ask you. If you had to think of what you're bringing now into your advisory practice and what you take with you for the rest of your career, what would be one lesson that you would say retail taught you that was something new from any of the experiences you had in the 15 years before that?
I would maybe come back to this agility that I connect to retail. Even if I think of myself by nature that I'm, quite fast, quite dynamic, quite open, this is a new level that I experienced. And when you compare it across the industries, until you experience it, you don't know what I'm speaking about. So when you have the whole team joining together, just like project managers, even if you have directors and board members around the table, this creates also a specific kind of atmosphere and mode of working. And definitely this is something what I'm taking with me and what I want to take with me, this kind of working and an approach towards business and towards customers.
Awesome. You said fast and dynamic, which is a really good segue into our final round, the rapid fire questions. So I'll ask you a few questions. Give me the first answer that comes to mind. One superpower you would want to have?
Flying.
What is the favorite thing on your desk right now?
Bottle of water, my Stanley.
A Stanley Cup. There you go. Another great example of branding and marketing. Which social media app do you use the most?
Instagram.
Instagram. I would have thought LinkedIn. And then last but not least, favorite holiday destination?
Oh, my summer house, Mimica, Dalmatia, Croatia.
Lovely. It's been great having you on board, Nina. Thank you so much for sharing all your lovely insights. I wish you all the
Thank you,
success with
Mitchell.
your new advisory career. I think there's a lot of great learnings that you're bringing in there, and I think that's going to be a huge asset for anyone working with you going ahead.
Thank you so much, Mitchell, for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Retail Spotlight. Tell us how you found it, whether you're in the retail industry and want us to dive deeper into certain topics or invite certain guests, or if you're a passionate shopper enjoying a behind-the-scenes look, we want to hear from you. Hit us up with your comments, likes, and feedback. And if you know someone who loved this episode, please share it with them. Lastly, if you want to stay informed when we go next live with the next episode, make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you next time.